I'm going to start off by thanking everyone for being here and showing a willingness to listen to our learnings and things from our GFP trip to Japan, which was brilliant. I'd also like to thank all our investors. It goes without saying that the journeys that we're here talking about today would not have happened without their contributions. And also thank you very much to Nuffield, to Jody and to Nicola, and to the Nuffield board, and a special mention to Wayne, who made our GFPs incredibly special. Our GFP's been given the task of linking our presentation back to supply chains, so we've actually tried to do it a little bit differently and pick out individual visits to each focus on which those businesses had a particular focus on the supply chain and getting further down the supply chain than just being a primary producer. Each of Jim, Johnny, Bertie, Jarod and Bernie and I will select an individual business. The six of us up here, that gives each of us 2.5 minutes, and I've already spoken for 2 minutes. So therefore I'm going to be very quick and just give you a take-home message from our trip, which visited Singapore, Japan, Denmark, Israel, Washington DC and Texas. Now, whilst in Singapore, we had a presentation from the MLA from Andrew Cox, and my take-home message from that was basically, the world's a big place. Who do we want to be supplying our 4% of production to? These three graphs here actually all show, the top one shows world population and the bottom two each show disposable income. And in my mind, they show the ability of the purchaser to actually consume our products. And as three really stark contrasts, to go from a population of 1.46 billion people in China to have 0.75% of that population living in a household with a disposable income above $70,000, it really does begin to raise the questions to me of who should we be supplying our products to and where should our end user be? The graph here shows that on a world stage of, is it more important to focus on feeding the population, or are we producing the high value, high quality products and therefore the market's big enough for those products? I'm now going to hand over to Jim.
Good afternoon, guys. Jim Alexander from Cootamundra, southern New South Wales. I'm going to have a look at a large horticulture business we visited in Brand in Denmark. The name of the business, Axel Manson, named after its founder. A total of 1,900 hectares, which 1,300 under vegetables. So it's just a massive place. 230,000 organic layer chickens. 60% of the veggies grown under organic certification, and they're transferring more fields under organic production. Some of the values of Axel Manson revolved around fresh, high-quality produce, being flexible and valuing innovation and having an environmental conscience. They're part of a global GAP program that's a sort of best farming practice model to ensure that. So looking at some of the supply in and out, using chicken manure from the chooks and willows. Willow is a component they use for shade for the chickens, but they also mulch it and make compost that goes back on the fields. Biogas production, they've recently started a 50-50 share with Nature Energy, a Danish biogas company, in which the sludge out of the bottom of the tanks goes back on the fields as fertiliser. And on the labour staff side of things, they purchased a hotel during COVID because they were having trouble just getting workers to work, people being tied up in lockdown at home. So they were able to keep their local community happy, bought an old hotel, set it up as a quarantine facility and kept the veggies rolling out. On the other side of things, huge on-farm grading, packing and cool rooms. Forward-selling veggies, managing price risk there. Convenience products, which we saw a lot of in Japan as well, which is making use of a waste product like undersized onions. They cut them and peel them and pack them so that you're ready to go straight on the barbie. sort of thing. High value crops, other components of the biogas production, selling gas back to the grid, and also using CO2 to grow algae, which they grow in tubes just laid out in the field, which they actually dry the algae and sell it as a protein. They've developed an online shop, so households can go online, buy their own vegetables, delivered to your door. Also a farm shop and a conference centre they've added to the farm as well there too. Farm shop probably not profitable on its own, but a good place to showcase new products and get that interaction with the community and onto the farm. And holding events also, inviting chefs, getting the culinary experience on farm. Key takeaways for me, the importance of utilising specialised skill sets. For example, they bought a radish farm, but they realised they had no idea how to grow radishes. So they built a team of agronomists to help them through that process. All processes must be efficient when doing such a scalable business, a lot of people, a lot of machinery. And organic consumption is a big increasing trend in Denmark. They're already the highest consumers of organic produce in the EU. So that's me. Thanks.
Yeah, hi, I'm Johnny. I did Israel. Israel was the most incredible country. You go there and you think it's a desert. There's 25 mils of rainfall. That's not inches, 25 mils of rainfall over the whole year in some of the places, and they grow a power of food. It's absolutely incredible and underpinned by Makarot, which is the Israel National Water Authority. And starting so early, established in 1939, built drains to almost go through the whole country. And now with having 85% of their drinking water coming from desalinated seawater. Absolutely incredible. And underpinning that, they've been able to, or understanding that living in a desert, they need water for food as well. So they've put huge infrastructure into growing a power amount of food, and the diverse amount of food is incredible. And for a stat, over the last 20 years, they've decreased their water consumption by 12% and increased their food production by 26%. So they are the innovator Jedi Masters in my mind. But taking that further to supply chains, they've actually, because they were so good at this, they've leveraged it. So they've taken it further by making it even public trading on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange by capital raising, and now have $1.2 billion worth of revenue. And continuing to be the leaders in the world with 15% water loss around the world is average, and they're sitting at 3%. So my takeaways are willing to invest in infrastructure early. Doing that in the 1930s in a desert with a small population was incredible foresight. Build scale around the water technology and economy, and then being able to leverage that, and now be powerhouses in the world, and being able to keep that self-fulfilling by selling that innovation has been pretty revolutionary. And obviously continued investment in that innovation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bertie Arnekom from Kununurra, Western Australia, and I love anything fish related. In the southern part of Israel, we went to Ardag. It's an aquaculture company that practices marine aquaculture, where they farm not just on the ocean, but from the ocean and back. The basic overview of it, they started in 1980. They're on Eilat, southern part of Israel, on the Red Sea coastline. And there they produce red drum, sea bass, and sea bream. Those come from an in-house selection breeding program where they hatch, breed, and distribute their own fingerlings from there. They need to stand a little bit back. They export fingerlings internationally, and as a side project, they started breeding endemic corals from the Red Sea. We all have heard about coral bleaching, ocean acidification, climate change, warming oceans, etc., etc. So they put in a huge effort to protect corals. They breed them, and they sell them, and those goes back into conservation efforts. Where do they fit in the supply chain? They produce about 5 million fingerlings for Israeli aquaculture alone. They also export fry to 14 international countries. They provide a fish transport service. In the background there you can see a little bit of a semi-trailer. Within 6 hours, they can have those fingerlings from Eilat all the way to Haifa and north of Tel Aviv on the coast, and they can put them in the ocean in sea cages or on land in recirculating aquaculture systems. They supply corals for reef restoration and conservation projects, and they also propagate corals for an international, very fastly growing aquarium industry. My key takeaways there is, I bring that back to my study topic for my scholarship, is advanced nursery systems are crucially important into a fast expanding aquaculture industry. It's in the nursery phase and fin fish production where you build the resilience for your end product. Commercial aquaculture is heavily reliant on the seed stock that comes from nursery systems. No seed, no harvest. And then isolated nursery systems provide an ideal environment for R&D. You can keep everything in-house. They're close by. If you need to make chain nets, you can make chain nets before that fish goes out into the pond or in the ocean. And also for biosecurity management, if you have to do vaccinations, any forms of treatment, it's very easy to do right there. Thank you.
Hey, we're off to Texas. We went and visited the Volleman's farm. It was absolutely amazing. One of the most ship-shape shows I've ever seen. They started this farm in 1993, Frank Volleman and his wife, and 4 boys, and they're all married. They're all young fellas and young wives, and every one of them is heavily involved in the business. It was really inspiring. And they all had a 20% share in the business as well. So the succession thing was just incredible. Gone from 250 cows to 250 acres to 4,000 acres, 500 cows, 170,000 litres of milk they're producing a day. And they've gone from just producing a commodity to bottling the milk only of recent times. And while we were there, just that week we were there, they had 100 new retail shops take their product. It was amazing. They've got chocolate milk, strawberry milk, every milk you could imagine. And they're just capturing value. They're really value adding their product. It was really inspiring. And the cool thing was, it's just not milk in a plastic bottle. It's in a glass bottle. You buy the milk and pay a $2 deposit for the bottle. If you return the bottle back, get your $2 back. So it was pretty cool. It was like a real consumer-driven thing. You know, it was not so much a marketing producer push thing. The consumers really wanted this kind of milk. And the Texans, they're really patriotic. They wanted their own milk. And there was a bit of a hesitancy from the supermarkets, obviously taking dirty bottles back and all the hassle. But the consumers were right on them, you know. And the supermarkets are like, yeah, rightio. And business is booming. I was so happy for them. It was amazing. They're doing these home deliveries and even farm tours. They're so transparent on their farm. It was really inspiring. And the take-homes that I got from Volleman's farm is they've done their market research really, really well. They were going to start making yogurt. They went around and did a bit of homework, and everyone said that's not going to work. So they came up with this glass bottle milk idea, and it just went off like a box of crackers. And they're really community aware as well. That was so inspiring. You go down the street and people go, "Oh, you've been to Volleman's farm? Yeah, cool." And the way they donate their milk to charities and different places, it was just really inspiring. It was really inspiring that their reputation goes before them. And they sold their story really well. And it was just an inspiring visit. And the way they value-added their product was amazing. Bernie Burns.
Thanks, Jarod. Always enjoy going after you again. I'm going to speak very briefly about Angelina Forest products in Lufkin in Texas. So just as a bit of an overview, it's a southern yellow pine lumber mill. It was redeveloped in 2019 at the cost of $200 million. There's 245 million board feet. That's what the production was in 21. That's about 20,000 acres of pine. And it was sold to West Fraser in October last year for $300 million. So there's a bit of a background there. There was a group of entrepreneurs and forest owners who identified that there was a gap in the market. There was an issue that there was no mills nearby, and that was an issue because they were having to freight it further afield, and they were worried about keeping employment in the local town and the skills. They're very proud of their forestry background. So the entrepreneurs and the forestry owners sort of got together and decided to invest and create demand for their own products. So the investment decision was based on surplus pine timber nearby, increased demand because of the huge population growth in Texas, and that's driven by the timber framing industry. The strong community support. They had a lot of support from the local government there and the state legislature. Anyway, and their labour market was conducive. They had people who were interested in forestry and milling, and they had those skills. Just thought I'd show you a brief little video on some of the technology that you get when you spend $200 million US. This is a machine. Before I play it, it's a machine that it's all about optimizing the efficiency of the log. So there's a red laser beam there. It measures the diameter. There's a wheel that you'll see that moves as well. That measures the shape of the log as it goes through. And then it's got about 4 metres before the saw gets into place. And then obviously using the technology, it just optimises each cut depending on where the market is at that time. So obviously there's the supply chain opportunity was really that they wanted to value capture. And once there was an asset nearby that was adding value for the forestry owners, irrespective of whether they kept and operated that themselves or sold it on, which they ended up doing, that asset was there and they knew that there was always going to be a demand for it. The takeaways from this were don't be a passenger in your industry. So I'm a wool producer primarily, so for me, the visit really made me think about what more I could do to create value for my product. And that is like whether it's some sort of integration, and rather than just be a commodity price taker, you've got to create a point of difference or value add. Seek best in class for development and operations. They had an amazing team who had, I'm not sure if they have equity in the new business, but certainly in the redevelopment, the key staff had equity in that business, and that was one of the reasons why it was so productive and so profitable for the 2 years. So that $200 million redevelopment, I understand that they paid that back in 2 years. So fantastic return, and then they obviously made $100 million on top of that as well. So very good return on investment for those people who took the gamble, and now it's an asset for the whole community and the industry. And then the other one was really about invest in technology, use technology to create a superior product that makes it the best and the most efficient, not only to reduce labour, but to make workplace safer and control inventory. So that mill there can produce enough timber for 75 houses a day. So that's pretty much. Oh, I'll just take you back to this. This was a really cool. Or I thought this was really this is really cool as far as understanding what the inventory is and the efficiency in your milling. This technology looks at each individual stick. So every bit of timber that's milled, there's a camera there. It checks all the dimensions. If there's any warping, and then it puts a dollar value on it. So you know what the retail price or what they're able to wholesale price that the value of their inventory. So you can just see there on the right. Anyway, that's what I learnt from Lufkin Mill. I think that's pretty much it.